Is it going or?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, awesome. All right. Joe and I are really proud to oppose the resolution today for two main reasons that the government has failed to understand. Firstly, where authority comes from, and secondly, they haven't accurately really addressed the idea of what prioritizing the authority of the teacher is over the enjoyment of the pupils. Now, Joe already has addressed how this is actually a detriment to the education of the students. I'm going to be going more into the power dynamic that actually occurs when we pass this resolution in the classroom and also school-wide, and how that affects society as a whole, and also how obviously it's going to be affecting teachers, not only the students that we heard from when Joe was speaking. So first, the two issues that I see coming out from Opening Gov, mainly that they fail to understand where authority comes from, right? On their side, they see the authority for the teacher coming through the power of the school. We see it as coming through the pupils themselves. Why is it better to side with our side of the house under this analysis? Why? Because when the pupils actually appreciate the teacher and see them as someone who is helping them and someone who is going to be more of a mentor than a figure of authority, they're more likely to learn, and you get all the benefits that Joe was talking about in his speech. Now, on their side of the house, you see that through the power of the school, you don't have that acceptance from the students themselves, right? They themselves aren't actively attributing this respect to the teacher, and we think that that's detrimental to the education and also being able to maintain the classroom environment that we need for learning that side government keeps talking about, but fails to give us any real reasons why under their side of the house it's actually going to create that environment. Well, we've already given a lot of reasons that I'm going to be going into more when I talk about the power dynamic that we would have under that side of the house. Not right now. The other issue I see is that they haven't carefully weighed how we should be actually prioritizing authority of the teacher over enjoyment of the pupils, which is why I asked my POI why seating arrangements would actually be a detriment to the enjoyment of the pupils. If they can't say that a seating arrangement is going to create less enjoyment, we don't think that this is really actively accessing the resolution. They would have to explain to us why, in a situation, for example, teaching a lesson, why it should be that the teacher has more authority to impose standards rather than give more freedom and creative learning activities for the kids to enjoy. We think that that's the government burden today, and we haven't seen that from them. The other really quick rebuttal is I want to explain the link why we believe it inherently decreases active learning. They put that burden on us in this last speech. We think that when the teachers have more authority, this often leads to an environment where standards are highly educational standards are imposed upon students, and as Joe was saying, when you have these standards, you have less active learning, and when that happens, you actually don't end up learning. You can look to the US Common Core standards, you see less fiction being assigned, students are less likely to learn. We see all of the problems coming there. So now getting into also the whole slippery slope argument about taking them outside. We think that we take kids outside to go for PE or recess. It's not like they just demand that you're always going to have to be outside now, or if you give them candy, they're always going to want candy. It's not give a mouse a cookie and they're going to ask for milk. That's not how it works, so I don't think that that's really that great of an argument. But moving into the power dynamic that I'm talking about, we think that this is going to really, sorry, not right now. We think that what's going to happen here is that when you give more authority to the teacher, you actually inherently are giving more authority to the administration. We think that this is actually really bad. For a couple of reasons. One, because in institutions or schools where where the authority of the administration is at a much higher level than the students themselves, we see more crackdowns on things like school newspapers, right? We see that people the students aren't encouraged to kind of explore things like student newspapers, like freedom of the press, pursuing the stories that they want to pursue. What we see is things like censorship, where the administration is saying no, you should be pursuing this. We think that that's pretty harmful because it's discouraging people from discouraging students from actually engaging in these valuable practices that once they actually graduate from this school, they're going to be able to use in real life. They're going to be more informed members of the society. They're going to actually be creating the news that we digest as a society. And if they're less prepared to engage in the future, we think that that's a significant harm that you see coming out from this resolution. We also see that there's going to be an issue with the classroom itself. We think that this is going to detrimentally actually harm the teachers as well. Because what do we think? We think that teachers are pretty intelligent human beings for the most part, right? We're going to lend them that credit. We think that if you're up here and you're teaching a class, and you've been told by the administration that you should be imposing a very authoritarian-like classroom, right? Or at least the point where enjoyment is being sacrificed for that authority, right? That's what government has to defend in today's round. If you as a teacher feel like you have to meet these standards and keep firm order, what are you going to feel when you're in front of the classroom, right? You're not going to be feeling like this is a mutual respect, we're in this together. What you're going to be feeling is hostility coming from probably a large number of your students, right? A lot of kind of blowback against this kind of more stricter classroom. And what we see is a negative feedback loop, right? So the teacher's going to perceive that they have a negative classroom environment. They're not going to like their job as much, right? If you don't like your job as much, it's been proven that you're not going to actually perform as well, right? So then the teachers all of a sudden aren't as performing as well. The kids pick up on that as well. They dislike the teacher even more. And then learning is just completely sacrificed. So we think that that is a really significant harm because it affects the students and the teachers. I'll take your point.
Do you agree that a well-liked teacher is not necessarily the best teacher for kids in terms of education and academics? A person who's well-liked is not necessarily the person who thinks about the best interests of the kid.
I mean, yeah, you could be well-liked and then not be able to explain things, but it's your burden in this round to explain why you should actually sacrifice enjoyment in the classroom for a more authoritarian teaching plan. So we think that that is what you haven't been able to do so far today. So lastly, what does this do for society as a whole, right? All of a sudden you have all of these classrooms with students and teachers actively disliking education, actively being told by administrations that they shouldn't be maybe pursuing the articles that I was talking about before in terms of student newspapers. People aren't going to be feeling like they have, they're not going to be challenged, and they're not going to feel like they should be participating as critically with the material as they would under our side of the house. So for really all of the reasons, it's going to harm education, it's harming the dynamic that you see in the classroom between teachers and students, and because it's going to negatively affect the ability of all of these participants to engage in a more critical thinking society, we are very proud to oppose. Thank you.